I want to take a long, hard look at Liches, the sapient undead emperors with domination on their minds and coprolite in their pants, to figure out what the heck they are and why they're so freaking cool.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
This might be hard for me because I don't have eyes. In a world full of mindless zombie horde stories, which gets as stale and stinky as the ripe and pungent body of a zombini, the next step in spookiness is to add a king who can speak in full sentences and tell the swarms to act a little bit more like a proper army with a real goal. These liches all start out with the same thought. Death is scary. I don't want to do it or think about it, and it probably hurts a lot. Also, who's gonna take care of my Animal Crossing village when I'm gone? What about my Nintendo? So these anxious guys and gals spend 10 years ironically obsessing over the nature of death, gathering up enough magic to make skeletons dance at their beck and call, and then finally cracking the code to almost dying, while at the same time binding their mind and soul to something a little more permanent than a fragile bag of wet meat that expires faster than some koi fish and parrots. Usually they plop their soul into either a phylactery or the body of a younger person, but actually binding your soul to the object is an evil, nasty, stinky thing to do. Exactly how you perform it depends on who taught you the magic, and only ancient creatures know the ritual. Hags, demon lords, other liches, devil court holders, and denizens of the land of death are among their numbers. All these bastards are extremely reluctant to spill the beans because a new lich means competition. I made a shorter video about Lichen around 5 years ago where I list some dumb ritual ideas. You can watch that if you want. Just know that it's a very difficult process, and it's as evil as it is difficult. You'll probably have to poach a few baby unicorns along the way, and you will not have any friends when you're done. It's so difficult that if you fail the ritual during any of the 16 to 42 steps, your soul gets broken in half and you become a bone claw. Bone claws, ironically, become natural servants of like-minded creatures, like other liches. Meaning if a lich teaches you the ritual on purpose, he's probably just using your soul to create a salad-fingered servant. Lich kings and queens present one of the most unique concepts for a villainous monster, since they've stolen all the time in the world that an actual idiot would ever dare to ask for.
What? When did you make this wish?
50 years ago?
They gain the raw, unequated power to 100% their entire Steam library, master all other schools of magic, master the blade, and find persistent philosophical answers to all of life's questions, or death's questions. When you have infinite patience, you start to act with less and less agency over your own undeath, eventually delegating all risky actions to your subjects, enemies, and allies. Most liches just love collecting new things, like dusty tomes, furry art commissions, and really cool robes. But when they get smart about it, they'll pay adventurers to get those items for them, and then kill the adventurers, raise them as new servants, and also gain those pajamas they asked for as well as their money back. But once you have everything you need, when you're impervious to attack, you've learned everything and outlived love itself, you realize you've lost everything. When there's no reason to go forward and nothing left to do but die, what do you become when you've denied yourself that final privilege? Moving away from a question none of us will have to answer except for maybe Mitch McConnell, dead meat's gotta eat. Since souls are like lantern fuel for a creature's will to keep burning, a lich needs to occasionally feed itself by trapping and cooking up a soul. Thresh from League of Legends or the Beast from the Woods illustrate this pretty well, since the more souls you have at one time, the better off they are. You ever see that movie In Time? As they say, the lich get licher. Another good example of forceful collection is Gecko Moria from One Piece, who steals people's shadows and uses their power to fuel his army or his own body, while cursing the survivors of his attacks to a half-life in darkness. If a lich fails to, or just straight up forgets that they gotta go get gas, their body gives out like an old jalopy, turning from bones to dust until all that's left is the skull that just kills you. Watch that video too, it's fun. When doing research for these videos, I always obsess over the question, where did these things first show up? And I found the answer.
There's 3, actually.
Whether or not you'd believe it, Sauron, the necromancer, though not technically undead, was first mentioned in The Hobbit in 1937. Then there's Thulsa Doom, foe of Kol and Conan the Barbarian, is an undead sorcerer from 1967. And lastly on this tiny list, the one that actually inspired Gygax, is Afgor Khan from The Sword of the Sorcerer, a veritable ripoff of Conan the Barbarian. Das Kothar, the Barbarian swordsman. They're different, I promise. Also, Afgor Khan is 500,000 years old. That's a long time. Now that we know who these early dudes are, let's get into some of the bigger name, lavishly licentious, liberty lecherous, late-livered, lichen-loaded lich lords. Oh look, it's the guy on the book. A Sararak. I made a video about him too. This video is kind of like memory lane. The most enigmatic, trouble-causing creature in most of the game's history, a Sararak hides in the furthest reaches of the Middle Plains where he concocts new ways to collect souls. Since he's at least 1,000 years old, he's amassed a fortune of treasures and placed them in soul-sucking dungeons for brave adventurers to prove their stupidity. He also plopped a stillborn godling inside the Forest of Cholt, stealing all the souls in the region to fuel an eventual undead incubation. Nasty fucking dude. Where his phylactery is probably one of the biggest mysteries in the plains. All of his tombs are fucking sick. He even puts fake-out liches and demi-liches in some of them just to trick you. He's also buddy-buddy with Vecna, who's actually not a god, at least originally. In the first mention of his name, Vecna was a lich whose body was entirely and completely obliterated, save for his hand and his eye. The guy who made the artifact said nothing about who Vecna was, but just that his soul lived on faintly within the two objects and they would fuck with you if you used them. About 10 years later, someone thought,
Where's the rest of you?
and boom, Vecna lives. The adventure. At the end of said adventure, he's banished to Ravenloft, which leads into the Realm Tear adventurer titled Die Vecna Die. He dies so many times in so many realms that his legend turned him into a demigod, and then eventually a lesser god. He's probably really fucking old. Let's share the clock with that other guy I mentioned a while ago and say 500,000. Elsewhere, you have the Lich Saz-Tam, the most active and ambitious Lich in the narratives. The dude is constantly backstabbing, reshaping, and fucking with the Red Wizards of Thay, of which he is a member. The Thay's crazy, and honestly way too complicated for me to delve into, but Saz-Tam's political escapades is a pretty fun read. He's also only 350 years old, I think. He's like a child. He's also borrowed some powerful magic toys from an even older Lich, Larlock, who collected so many magic items that he just goes crazy sometimes. Larlock has lived in Undeath long enough to succeed in his ultimate goal. Dying, but with extra steps. Where you stick around in the world, but you hide from it and everything leaves you alone, and you get protected by like 60 Lich that just walk around your palace doing nothing all the time. Good for him. For those of you who don't know, Steve Lichman is a legend, and probably the second most powerful Lich on the list. He has complete physical immunity to any damage done to him by impure souls, which includes anybody who's ever fucked. That probably includes jerking your gherkin. I think Steve Lichman's only struggle is just that silver-spooned autistic vampire guy. In H.P. Lovecraft's book, The Thing on the Doorstep, I think the monster fits the bill in a certain way, where an occult wizard attains near immortality by soul-swapping with people younger than himself. The thing that's actually on the doorstep is the guy's soul whose body was taken, stuck in the rotting corpse of his late wife. Lovecraft came up with that in a dream, by the way. Before I get to the best one, some honorable mentions go as follows. The Gun Lich in Enter the Gungeon, Karsus in League of Legends, who's not good, the Lich from Dota, the Frozen Lich King from Warcraft, I think, and Vlaakith, the Gith Queen who's definitely not a Lich. Now let's get to the good part. The Lich. Adventure Time's Knight of Cerberus, who ushered in a serious tone Adventure Time eventually adapted, and he's just a perfect evil. In the words of the show's production bible, the Lich King is not funny. His one primordial goal is to extinguish all life, working tirelessly for the moment that the whispering embers of the world's final survivors join in silence as a mountain of broken bodies beneath the wheel. He will take any action, no matter how heinous, to achieve his goal, and is literally incapable of taking actions that don't further his cause. Ironically, In this way, the Lich is any Lich's worst nightmare. Undead followers are only useful until life is ended, and then even they would follow. He's so direct that he only speaks briefly, giving shorthanded commands or sermons about death. Ron Perlman voices the Lich and has 3 major monologues. In the first, he defines his nature as the undying darkness more powerful than power itself.
Fall.
In the second, he defines the nature of the world and its ancient past that has not been brought up before or since he said that.
Start.
In the third, after his success in annihilating all life, a lament. He mourns his ultimate victory, having lost his purpose after achieving it. But death itself can't meet death itself.
Why? Why must this be?
So he's a Tetris piece now, which seems fitting. Maybe all those shapes floating around Golbs are ancient agents of chaos, whose presence in this void signifies the death of their realities at their own hands. And that's the consolation prize for the Undying, I guess. Which begs a different question. Knowing that Undeath is the eventual sacrifice of purpose, why do Lich ascend? My first thought would just be indulging in one's fear of death, like a frantic scramble for more time that ends in a Twilight Zone-style punishment. Acererak, as far as we know, was like this. He could have craved a longer life, achieved his goals, saw them fall away in the hourglass, and decided to start sowing chaos until someone or something is able to outwit his madness. Vecna is so old that why he became a Lich doesn't matter anymore. And whoever he was in life has been crushed to dust, so that now he only embodies the basic nature of what a Lich kind of looks like. But the most ambitious Liches, like Saz Tam, want to recreate life in Undeath. If everyone is dead, then everyone can be undead, under your unquestioned infinite rule. The Demon Prince Orcus is kind of funny. He just wants everything to die so that it'll finally be quiet. In the monster manual, Liches are high-level endgame wizards with phylacteries that let them come back again and again, even when they're killed. They also have a solid set of deadly necromancy spells, paralytic fingies, life-rupturing fart claps, and manipulative magic like Dominate Monster, Globe of Invulnerability, and Scrying. If you fight one in its lair, which is usually the only place you'd ever find a long-lived Lich, you'd have to deal with an infinite flow of spell slots and swarms of fallen adventurer ghosts, like in the Fight King's Colosseum. An old, bored Lich is probably just watching TV on its orb of scrying all the time.
That was a 70-inch plasma screen TV.
To beat one of these guys, you gotta kill it and then break its little Voldemort toy, wherever they hide that thing. And nobody should be able to ever find the phylactery of a Lich unless they're stupid. I had an idea for a little digital combat game like 4 years back called Lich Tower, where you would play as a mini-boss in a side-scroller game like Shovel Knight, where every time you, as the mini-boss, win, the player has to restart their save and grind to get stronger and fight you at a higher level. And every time you lose, the player moves to the next level, you rejuvenate, and then fight the next player who picked up the game. The only reason these characters fight you is because it's a side-scroller, and you don't want them in your castle, but they keep showing up. I had a plan for a bunch of branching endings and all that business. I don't know, I think it'd be fun. I had a whole story where they're interrupting you trying to bring back your wife, who you sacrificed to become a Lich, but I want to build a new dumb Lich to close out my own video. So here's a little pitch. Torbinki the Fetid Heart, a wizard obsessed with the most vile rituals you could cast, spends his time dredging up long-forgotten magics and performing all forms of evil, from the mundane to the unholy, enslaving goblins, starting MLM schemes, turning children into orphans en masse, underfunding the orphanage that they go to, burning the orphanage down, and then raising the orphans from the dead to repeat the cycle in other towns, rug-pulling bitcoins, spoiling movie endings on public forums, scalping new hardware and movie tickets, and creating racist spam bots on children's websites. Nearing the end of his wicked life, he sought the most offensive way to achieve lichdom. A spell so unspeakable, not even the demon lords of the abyss would describe it unless their minds were twisted and then forcefully probed. A spell that can only be cast if you first wish for the ability to perform the hideous actions necessary to ascend. After carefully collecting the indescribable materials, he fucks up and he trips on his robe and swaps his dying soul out with new life. And now we have little orphan Richie the Lich, a baby whose inability to die saved him from needing parents during his formative years. The formative years being undead. Now at the ripe young age of 478, his dark empire takes a uniquely powerful shape based on his lonely upbringing and inability to read or properly gain power over others. The power from the ritual causes him to slowly kill all mortal life around his body, and immediately raise those bodies ready to serve under his ongoing rule. His closest allies are the ancient bones of the first creatures that he came across, including the Deathclaw form of that wizard who tripped on his robe. Among their numbers are a rabbit, a corgi, which he rides into battle because he's small, a flightless group of crow skeletons, and a hag that mistakenly tried to eat him. Never having lived long enough to fear death or crave any sort of purpose, he meanders across the world with an ever-expanding and now legendary army of undead creatures, learning very little along the way and forcing interesting questions. Do nature and nurture apply in any way to a creature nearly born into its own undeath? Would something that never knew life crave it? Or would it crave true death? That's gross. I'm gonna go take a shower and wash the lichen off of me. Thanks for watching. This is my first longer form video, so I'll try and do more of these. If you liked it, do the YouTube stuff. Give a comment about a hamburger. Goodbye.